Good evening, everyone. We are going to begin the webinar series in just a moment. Kelly Ansberger will be leading our webinar this evening. Okay, so I'm going to let Kelly take over from here. She will be presenting this evening. Just a few ground rules for us, if we could. If you would like to ask any questions during the webinar, please go into the chat function and send the question to me. My name is Jack Reed. Send the question to me, and at the appropriate time when we have a pretty good break, I will then relay the question to Kelly.
Hi guys, tonight we're going to talk about the cards activity in Snowflake. And the cards activity is not a gradable activity like some of the other ones. However, it's a great activity with a lot of variations of how you can create activities. So those are some things that we're going to go over tonight. So in this cards activity, there's this is fact and opinion, and the students have to determine if each statement is a fact or an opinion. So this is round one. Up here in the corner to the right, you can see round 1 out of 5. So this is our first round. So determine if each statement is a fact or opinion. So pandas live in the forest of China. Pandas are cuter than koalas. So this would be a time to discuss with your students, have them brainstorm about it, have them compete, then they can come up and click. And you can see that we have the answer on the back, fact and opinion. So click next, we go to round 2. Up in the right, you can see we have round 2 out of 5. Panda bears look really fat. Pandas are the most adorable bear. So they can flip the cards and look in the answers and look at the answers. Up here to the left, this is where your description of the lesson is going to be. And this is also covered in the last couple of webinars, if you were able to attend those. And right here on the eye, you can click and get all kinds of information about the lesson. And here an external link is included for a fact or opinion PDF game. And then that should open up right here in Google Drive. And this is actually a game that you can have your students do in like a station or a center activity. So lots of variation and lots of practice there as well. In this cards activity, you'll notice that we have an array of more cards, and that's one reason that the cards game is or cards activity is so versatile. Here we have pick one card from each row. This is round 1. And if we go here to our instructions, right, in this fun 2-digit addition and subtraction game for your students will pick one card from each row. So they click a card from the first row, let's pretend it's 13, and one from the second row, and then they click a card from the third row. And then the students would complete the addition or subtraction problem. It also adds a little mystery to 2-digit addition and subtraction. So here, we're going to pick a card. We have 45. Okay, so pick one card from this row. Okay, so they could choose either or. And then pick one card from this row. So if they pick this one, they would subtract the 2 numbers, obviously the larger number from the smaller number, or here that they would add them. So instead of just having a bunch of addition and subtraction problems on the screen, this is just a really neat kind of mysterious way for the students to come up and pick the numbers to get the question. So if we go to the next one, we have round 2 out of 4. So pick one from this row, pick one from this row, and then pick one from this row. And this doesn't have to be your only problem. You can change it up by completing some others there. And then round 3, same type of thing. This time the minus was on the right. And then round 4. And what's neat about this is you can also have your students create these activities and then share with others or share with you and kind of get an idea of the students' understanding there. So I'm going to show you, actually, if we go in here, we are going to go back to edit, and we're just going to look at how this was created. So this is the round title, round 1, and that's by creating a group, we get our round, and then creating content, we get each one of these bars underneath it, and each one of these bars represents one card on the screen. So for instance, this image that I placed here is the front side of the card, and this image here is the back side. This image is the front side of the card. This image here, 45, is the back side of this card. So when you're working in the cards activity, you're pretty much placing a front and a back on each side of the cards. This is one of the ways used is flashcards. You have maybe a definition on the front, and then you can flip the card and you have the vocabulary word, or vice versa. You have a vocabulary word on the front and the students have to name the definition, and you flip it over to get the back. Or even the same with math problems and math facts. But these are just a different ways, a few different ways to use the cards activity. And these are images that I created. You can create your own images. The square is either 400 by 400 or 300 by 300. And I just did it in Google Slides and added a little bit of color and text. And then use my snipping tool to save the image. And then down here, you have the option to change the background, okay? So we can get rid of the background that's currently there. And we can choose from some different themes. And there's a nice selection here of backgrounds to choose from. And you can also browse. You can go to your image search, okay? So you can search somewhere on your drive. You can pull directly from your Google Drive, OneDrive, or the content gallery. And the content gallery is nice because there's a lot of images that are already created for you in here. So let's say we want the yellow here. Oh, that's a little hard to see, but you get the idea. I wouldn't leave it like this because we can't see the text up here. But you can try and pick and choose different backgrounds that you like. Now, ordered, for this activity, I had to leave it ordered. If you don't leave it ordered and we go to randomize, it will mix all of our cards up. So for this activity, it doesn't really lend itself to be randomized because we have picked, one card from each row. But if you wanted to change things up, if you had a memory game or other types of card activities, you might want to change the order. You can change your font here. It's not going to change the font on these cards, as those are separate images. But we can change. You can see it changes the color of the text here, and it should change. If we had them on the cards, it changed the size. And then you can have a shadow or leave the shadow off. And again, on the left-hand side here, we have our round 1. This one is round 2, round 3, and round 4. And then the lesson information, that's where you're going to type everything up about your lesson. And this is nice if you're going to share with a colleague or if you're going to post it to the community. It's good to have this information even from year to year, just to kind of go back and look at, what your idea was for the lesson. So manage content is where we add our content, and then lesson information is where we can even add our, here you can add a YouTube video if you would like. And what's really nice in software.
Kelly?
Yes.
We have a question from Scott that said, how did Kelly get 3 cards in a row? I only see where she has areas to enter text for 2 cards in each row. Would you be able to respond to that?
Yes, actually, I can show you that here. I'm going to click Create New Lesson. And so let's just do opposites here. Okay, so we have hot and cold. I'm going to create content. I'm going to pull these. Should be able to.
Kelly, I'm sorry to interrupt you again. I've gotten several private messages from people saying that they're getting a lot of audio feedback from other people's microphones. I've received four or five of those in the past 30 seconds. So if everyone could just look at the bottom of their screen and make sure that they turn off their microphone. I'm trying to keep them off as admin, but if people join, it's hard to keep up with all of them. So just at the bottom of your screen, turn off your audio and your video if possible. And if you do get feedback, just send me a chat and I'll try to keep up with making sure everyone's off. Thank you.
So we have tall, short, big, little. So now you see that there's just two squares. So now we have three. So what I did, Scott, I just continued until I had the 9 cards on the screen. And it makes an array once you have, it kind of automatically forms like that. It makes sense. There's really no way for me to position these 3 cards in any other order. Might have done that already. I should put them underneath. There's the 9 cards. Now, this is where you could change the fonts or the sizes. Okay, and then we can also change the color here to black. I can take off that shadow. Then when I go to play this, see we have 9 cards. So whenever I just place 9 cards on the screen, and it just so happens that it nicely puts them in an array. If we have 8, of course, we're going to have one missing from this spot. And you can just see how quick that was for me to create. And that's one reason another reason I love the software, because you can just quickly come up with these activities fairly quickly. Does that help answer the question, Scott? And then if you wanted to, you could also search for an image, okay? And it already kept my word alive up here. And if it's not the exact dimensions, you're gonna see the colored square around it, but you can also, and then you can choose a fit here, we can stretch. Okay, so there it takes up the whole square. And then we could go in and we could do an image search again, right? And I'm not sure, Deds, what do we want to search for, but let's just, and then when we click play, now we should have those images in there. It absolutely makes no sense at all, but you get the idea as far as how easy it is just to add a picture from a Google search in there. It really, it didn't take any time at all. And that's one thing that's great too about the kids creating and kind of seeing what they know about the concept that you were teaching. And then I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to go back to the Explore page. Pardon, my internet is extremely slow. And the phone with the internet company, and he's over here. I'm like, no, don't touch the box. It's working. It's slow, but it's working. And I should have, I'm going to try to find.
Kelly?
Yes.
I have a couple more questions that have come in, if I could ask at this point. Marianne has asked us, are there any card templates? Like if you're wanting an array already set up, how do you search for other games that are already made?
How do you search for other lessons that are made? Is that the question?
Yes, I think when they're referring to games, they mean the lesson activities, yes.
Okay, so from whenever you go to snow.live, okay, it's automatically going to come up to My Lessons page. So you would click on Explore, and in Explore, you can search here by different age groups, lesson types, subjects, and countries. So if you just want to search for a specific lesson type, you can go right here to cards. So now we have all kinds of cards activities that come up.
Okay, and are there any card templates already made? So, yeah, Marianne, if you could just send me a message explaining a little bit more what you're asking by that, then I'll be able to forward that on to her. We also had the question, does this connect to a student iPad or Chromebook while the teacher displays it on the board?
Yes, you can absolutely send the lesson to your students, and they can do the lesson with you. You can also do this one as a practice activity.
So Marianne, students have accounts where they can sign in, and you can assign them these lesson activities. They can be assigned as homework or as practice games, and they do them from any device.
So this is another cards activity, and here we have least to greatest. And so the students need to decide if the order of numbers is going from least to greatest. If it is, they click it, says that's correct, right? If it's not, they say it says try again. So just another way to quickly assess. And this one here only has one round. And you see whenever I first go to snow.live, it's going to come up with My Lessons. So these are all of your lessons that you have either opened recently or that you've created. So if you know there's one that you haven't gotten to, or that you haven't created in a while, you'll need to open it up for it to be here. So you just click Explore, and then you get to the Explore page. And you can also, there's a lot of neat things that are categorized. You can see right now on the website, there's a lot of Christmas or winter themed activities that are geared. Here's like naughty or nice synonyms for Santa's list. Simplifying expressions with exponents. This is a really nice lesson by Mary Al, and you can see there's just two cards on the screen. So simplify, the expression, and then you can see the answer. So she did similar to what I did on the other activity. The first card, basically when you flip it, it gives the directions, and then they have to simplify. And again, this time, and that's another neat part of cards. You saw with the other rounds, right? There were 2 cards for each round. Well, you can add as many cards as you want to each of the rounds. So here, after the students have practiced a couple times, now she can make it a little bit more challenging and having 4 questions on the screen for the students to complete. And up here again to the right, you can see 1 out of 5 rounds.
Kelly?
Yes.
We have another question from Angela. And it says, are these card lessons able to be edited? Like if I want to keep the same template, but have it be about something else?
These images, the ones that I just showed you with like the giraffe print, you could actually put like a white rectangle over them and change the information. But because they are images that she created, you can't necessarily change the text on them without kind of reading the image yourself.
But I think
that makes sense?
Yeah, in general though, Angela, if you're wanting to take a lesson and edit it, any of the content that's in the lesson, you can take out and change and use the same template that's there to put in other content. You can also take the content that's in a lesson activity and choose a different lesson activity and take a cards game and move it into a bugs game, or from one lesson activity to another. But everything that's in the community, once you play it and it goes into your lessons, you're able to go in and edit it and make it your own with whatever content you would like to put into the same template.
Any other questions? This is a lesson on pronouns, and this is a little bit different example than just looking at one card at a time.
While that's loading, I'm going to ask a couple of other questions that have come in, Kelly. So, Allison, you asked me a question that I'm going to ask if you would email me. It's a much longer answer than what I could give in here. If you email me at jr@nuitec.com, and I'll send that email to you, I'll answer your question. Angela asked me, are all of the lessons free? Yes, absolutely. Everything on our community is free. And I'll ask Kelly to show you in a moment how to search by NUITEQ teacher. And all of the material that's by NUITEQ teacher are materials that we have created as a company. So it's gone through a vetting process. And within about 8 months, we will have one lesson activity aligned to every ELA, math, and next generation science standard. About 8 months after that, we will have a scaffolded and an extension activity aligned to each standard, and they will always be free. And Marianne, you asked me, do teachers get a report on how the student did on the lesson when you send it to them? So Kelly, could you answer that, if the teachers get a report on how the students did?
Yes, Marianne, there's 16 different templates, and cards are one of the, or 16 different activities. Basically, and cards is one of the activities. This one that we're showing you tonight, there's no way that cards can be graded. But if you're doing like a match activity or the drop activity that was shown last week, both of those are gradable. So when the students have to, whenever they match them up, it will actually grade it and give you a grade for your students, and it will show you exactly which questions they got wrong and what their answer was. So you can kind of go through your list of students, and let's say all of them missed question 3. You know, as a teacher, you might say, you know, maybe that wasn't the greatest question since they all missed it, or maybe that's something that I haven't covered before, and then, you know, go over that one question with your students. But 8 out of the 16 different activities are gradable, and any of them you can send as a practice assessment. So you might want to send, like this example here that's on the screen, this cards activity, as a way for the students to practice the concept, and then send them either a match or a drop activity as a gradable one. So click this card to read a sentence, and then click on the card with a pronoun that replaces nouns in black. So you have Miles and Peanut, both like their bone fresh from the store. As we go through next, Johnny helped his neighbor move into his new house. Same thing, Betty and Joseph went to the bank to deposit money. And then again, students can also create these activities too. And this might be one that you might not want. Well, you could change the order of this and just make them random to kind of change it up too in there. And again, when we go into edit, and the more cards, I will say that the more cards here that you create on each round, then the smaller the cards are going to become on the screen. So with the panda one that I showed you in the beginning here, you notice there's only 2 cards on the screen, so they take up more space. But there's not much of a limit. I think we can have, Jack, I might be wrong on this. I think we can have up to 15 rounds. Is that correct?
I'm not sure, Kelly. I can let everyone know that next time we're on.
Yeah, I think that you have the option of having 15 rounds here, so you can space your content out because when you show, or when the students are doing the activity on the Chromebook, of course the screen's going to be smaller than most likely your laptop, and of course the the panel or the projector view on the board. So those are just some kind of different and unique ways to use the cards lesson. Again, they're very easy to create and very easy to customize and change. We can go back here to community lessons, and here's where you would change the lesson type. So what Jack mentioned is you can change any activity into another format or another type here. And then this is the drop one that we discussed last. And it's going to be a little bit different because it was designed a little bit differently. But we could just tell the kids these two go together here. And you can see that this will grade it. So that's a drop activity, and because we have the different choices here, you see that we have the X's and the green check mark. Now on a gradable assessment, it won't give the students this feedback. They just click submit when they're done. It will give them a grade. But on a practice, it always will.
So we're at the half-hour mark. So at this point, first of all, thank you, Kelly, for presenting on cards. But I would like to open the floor up to any questions that anyone has on anything at all to do with the product. So it can be about the lesson that Kelly presented tonight, or if you have questions about anything else, please type them in to me, and I will be glad to have Kelly or me, or there's Danielle that's on the webinar with us also. Any of us could try to answer them if you have any other questions. So feel free to type over to me about anything that you might have. And while I'm waiting for some questions to come in, I would like to mention that you do have the ability to use classes and build classes and send out assignments to groups of students or individual students and differentiate according to the groups that you build. And that is under the Manage Class section. And I would be, we're going to be doing a whole entire webinar on that soon. But Kelly, if you could just go and show where that part exists. You don't need to go in and show exactly how it works, but where it exists, so people could play with that for a little while before we do our webinar, just so they're a little bit more familiar with it whenever we go. And
as far as sending the students?
Like where you do your, right there, where you do your class and how you, don't go through explaining all of it because that would be a whole 30, 45-minute webinar, but just a little bit of like what exists, and then we'll be doing a webinar on that, but then people can know where to look and go in and play with it in the meantime.
So here you would select your class, and you can add a new class. You can enter them manually or with like a CSV file, and it will give you a student username and password. And I would write those down, keep them somewhere, give them to your students, however you organize your passwords. And then after you, when you select your class, if I had one added in here, the class name would come up. And then you can actually select individual or multiple students to send that activity to. So like Jack said, for differentiation, you might have a student that is way beyond what you've been teaching, so you might want to send them a cards activity or a drop lesson that's a little more challenging, and you might have some other students that are, on level or even a little bit below, and you're trying to get them there. So it's really great for differentiation, because you can send 4 students, one activity. You can send another 5 students a match activity or a match lesson, and the rest of the kids another one. So it's you're not forced to send the same activity even at the same time to all of your students, which is really neat.
Kelly, could you just click on where it says class for a second?
Where it says here?
No, next to my lessons class.
Yes.
So when you're there, if you were to choose manage students, that's where you would be able to import from Google Classroom or build your roster. You have to agree that you're in compliance with so you'd have to check that off to agree you're in compliance. And then under the review progress, that's where you'd be able to go and review the progress of your student. Again, we're going to be doing an entire webinar on that, but I just want to let you know that it's there so you can go in and play with it a little bit. And then we did have another question. Can I search for Kelly's lessons? Yes, you can. If you go, Kelly, can you go back to the community and show where you can search a keyword so you can look for your name, and where you could also look for NUITEQ teachers?
Yes, and this is actually pretty new in the latest update, so.
Is it?
I usually just type the name in, but
Kelly, I'm sorry. It's on that Snowflake app. The web version has not put it to where you can search for them.
Okay.
You can, however, where your cursor is, just type in Kelly's name, and all of her lessons will come up. So you could search for anyone there. And if you go on the app that's on your board, and I did not mean to turn my camera on. If you go in the app that's on your board, then on the board you would actually have a choice to choose NUITEQ teachers. We have another question that came in that said, where did Kelly go to find schoolwork assignments? And I didn't see where she went to get to the page we're currently viewing. So I think that was the page previous. So I'm not.
So to actually send to students, what I did was I clicked on an activity here on the Explore page that I wanted to send, and it's going to be in this little hamburger menu up here, and you can go to edit.
Are you looking to send to students?
And then right here, you can click send to students.
And then we had another question from Allison saying, I did not know there was an app versus the web-based. Is the app only on the board? Allison, that is probably one of the most common questions I get as I travel around. So I'm actually in Georgia right now visiting three different school districts today with Danielle, and that's been asked in every single school. So there is the Snow.live version, which Kelly is showing you right now, and that is the app, that's the web-based version. We would recommend when you're building lessons that this is where you build your lesson activities, because you can sit at your computer and build things like you would normally used to be building at home on anything else. You type, you use your mouse and your cursor. There's also, when you're on your panel, your interactive panel, and you push Snowflake and the app opens up, that's an actual app, and that has a little bit different functionality than does the web version. And so I would recommend that you go back and forth. And again, in the near future, we're going to be doing a webinar on what the app looks like versus what the web version looks like, just so people can become more familiar with that.
And I'd like to say too that your app on your board and Snow.live, your account will sync. So let's say you're at McDonald's one night and you're on their internet and you're creating this, this cute lesson like Danielle did here on Santa synonyms. Then whenever you go back to school and you log in to your board on the Snowflake app, it will actually sync, and then the Santa synonyms activity that you created will be right there in your lessons on the board. So, you don't have to save anything or save it to your Google Drive and then upload it. The accounts will automatically sync with one another, so the lesson shows up in the app as well. And that's just a really, I think, neat feature of the softwares as well, because they communicate with each other and, make your life easier. You don't have to say, oh, where's that lesson, that I created? It'll be right there in your account and show up.
I just sent a little web address out to everyone on the chat. It's training.nuitec.com. If you go to that website, you will be able to look at little 3 to 4 minute videos that explain each one of these lesson activity types, and you can look at them at your leisure. In addition, if you would like to email me, again, my email is jr@nuitec.com. I have some little papers I made up that have the name of the lesson activity type and the QR code next to it. I laminated them. You could laminate them yourself. And when you're in your classroom, just put your little phone on it, put the picture on it, and if you forget how to build a lesson activity, you can hold your phone up and it'll show you how to build it as you're going along at your board. I'll be happy to send those out to people if you want to email me for them. I have another question that just came in, and it says, can you use the cards to apply them to a classroom management activity?
Absolutely. I guess similar to a class, dojo type, or you could even use it as a reward system. So let's say, students earn 10 points in your class for doing XYZ. You can have one of the cards rounds come up and say, this is the 10-point screen, right? And they get to pick like a mystery card and see what's behind it, and that's what they get for the 10 points. And then you can have another round for students who've earned, 15 points, or vice versa. So absolutely, you could even use the cards for grouping students. So you can have, if you wanted to group the students a certain way, you can just randomly, pick students from the different cards and have them work together in a group. So classroom management is actually a really good, way to use it. And I would love to see if you guys, I know you guys have tons of ideas, please share them with us. And just so, we can learn something from you and get some ideas to create other, activities.
Excuse me, Kelly. Angela's asking, can you skip rounds without completing them?
In the cards activity, you can, because it's not gradable, if that makes sense. So, but in like a drop lesson, like the ring, the students have to get all of the answers correct, and this little star comes up like, yay, you did it. Then that's the only way it will give them the next button to continue. But that's with the practice. Now, on a gradable activity, they have to complete all the components, but they can be right or wrong and click submit, of course, because it's going to be graded.
Okay, we are at about 7:47, so I want to be cognizant of everybody's time that they're spending with us. I don't want to keep everybody over. So if there are any other questions, please feel free to ask them. And at this time, I would like to remind you that next week we'll be having one other webinar, and then we will be taking a break for the holiday break, come back after the holidays. But we will have one next week on Wednesday at 7 Eastern, 6 Central Time, midnight in London, depending on where you are, what time it'll be. And if you have any questions or anything that you want to ask us ahead of time, feel free to email us, and we'll be happy to try to get your questions answered within the webinar. So, any other questions coming in before we sign off? I have one now. I have another question coming in saying, can you use cards for other content areas besides math and ELA? Absolutely, you can.
Absolutely.
I have built them in Spanish for teaching Spanish. I've used them for social studies, for geography, the tagging lesson. You can tag capital cities or cities of capitals, countries, all kinds of things. For science, you can put a body up and tag anatomical parts. So you can use them for anything. It's not just math and ELA. Will there be hands-on training locally? I don't know where you are, so I can't answer that question for you. If you type where you are, I'll be able to answer better for you. That's clear. So let me know where you're located and I'll tell you. We can always come to Hazelwood, so that would be a Kelly question.
Yes, we are going to have more training coming in January, and we're going to offer before school, after school training on different days of the week. So also for any of my Hazelwood teachers, if you need to get a Snow.live account, I know many of you have asked me and I've sent you those codes. So please email me and I will get that to you so you can start playing with the software and creating lessons.
And it's the reason I was saying I'm not sure where you are, because we've been in 3 different districts today and did training in all of them. So glad that you'll be getting yours. Any other questions from anyone? So Kelly, I would like to thank you for joining us tonight and teaching us all about the cards activity type. I would like to remind everybody to just go on and play. Do not be afraid of the system. You're not going to break anything. And just go in and play around with it and learn it. That's the best way to do it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask any of us. I would like to thank all of you for joining us. I know it's a busy time for everyone after they've gotten home from work and cooking dinner and taking care of families and sitting down, so we appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
If there are no other questions, we're going to sign off and we will see you all next week. Thank you, everyone. Y'all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, guys.